Here we go. The most underrated exercise for fat loss. You may know what it is. You may not know what it is. But if you didn't know what it was, now you know. It is walking. Walking is by far one of the most underrated things that you can be doing. And to add on to your fitness and fat loss program. But it's not that magic pill. So let me preface this a little bit. I'm going to go with this chart here. Is from a study done. And we talked about what is the number one thing that is actually going to help you lose what contributes to energy expenditure the most. So this is how much calories you burn, because fat loss is all about calories in versus calories out. That is the most important things. And if you can increase energy expenditure and decrease the amount of calories that you're taking, that is one surefire way to lose weight. So resting energy expenditure is the biggest factor with weight loss. And guess what? The best way to influence this is 3 ways. Number 1, diet, of course, decreasing the amount of calories you have, increasing the amount of exercises, or the combination. Funny thing, this chart actually shows that exercise alone is probably the least effective in terms of increasing your amount of energy expenditure. And diet is the most. And right in the middle is that combination of diet and exercise. So, take that for what it is, but how important nutrition plays a role in fitness and fat loss specifically, super important. So making sure your diet is on point, because you cannot out-train a bad diet. Then next up on this little chart is the thermic effect of feeding. So food itself actually takes calories to burn. That's why when we talk about eating, making sure you have enough proteins, because proteins typically take more calories to burn than it actually gives back to you. Making sure you're high in protein, less on carbs and fats. But here's the cool thing: activity, energy expenditure. So 2 things that create the activity, energy expenditure. Exercise energy expenditure, so stuff that you do to work out to burn calories, but also non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT for short, actually contributes more to fat loss than exercise energy expenditure. Wow, amazing, isn't that? So you can actually, the things you do outside of workouts can actually help you burn more calories than exercise itself. Now, exercise is important. I touched on this because exercise is important because you need to add in more muscles. Muscles help do a lot of things. Increases your resting energy expenditure, keeps you healthy, keeps you moving, keeps you feeling young. So you still need to do it, but you can imagine non-exercise activity thermogenesis actually shows that it actually contributes more to anything. So walking may help burn more fat. And they actually did a 12-week randomized control that compared the effects of a group of people that were on a low-calorie diet. So they were on a diet that they wanted to decrease the calories, plus 3 hours of weekly walking, and looked at the changes in things like the resting energy expenditure, their body composition, cardio, and all this stuff. Now, all these people are overweight, obese. They completed the study. Now, here's the interesting thing: there was really no significant difference between the groups in terms of resting energy expenditure. Not much changed, or body composition, or cardio, or their heart outcomes. Both groups lost a very similar amount of weight while being in a lower caloric diet. But get this: the walkers actually experienced significantly more a decrease in fasting insulin, but they also found that they actually had a little bit lower in terms of body fat, which is very interesting. They lost more body fat, although they lost more weight. Like the non-walking group and the walking group, they lost about the same amount of weight. The walking group lost a little bit more body fat, and they proposed that it was probably because you can burn up calories and everything. But here's my take on this. Interesting study. 2009, it's a little while ago, that talked about what's postprandial. It's just a fancy word for after eating. Is walking is better for lowering glycemic effect of dinner than walking before exercise. So what ended up happening is that whenever you go for a walk after you eat, your actually body burns most of the extra calories instead of it being stored as fat. Because you can imagine, if you're not walking after you're eating, you eat the food, It goes in your system, it digests, then all the extra calories your body says, I don't need it. Let's go through this process and convert it into fat to store for later. Whereas if we go for a walk after we eat, now your body's like, it's increasing the ability to actually, there's actually another study that showed that walking actually increases the rate of uh, mo- motility, I think it's called motility, that all the food going through your gut. So it actually increases the speed of digestion. So a lot of that food can be utilized for energy faster. So this ties into one of our challenges in the group too. So if you're not walking after dinner, to speed up fat loss, this may be the best time to do it. How much walking? Typically, 10,000 steps per day is what I like to recommend for people. And I think 10,000 steps is a realistic number if you are, giving yourself breaks. It's tough to hit if you're working very sedentary. And I'll give you my wife's example. She's in accounting, so she stands in front of the computer. So we've had to find a lot of hacks for her to get her step count up and her activity level up. One of them was making sure she's standing. We're even looking at getting a treadmill underneath her desk just to get her moving. Because there is some challenge. But here's some hacks. I mean, tips for getting an extra 10,000 steps, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Simple one if you live in a building. Parking further away from the door at shops. I know, sometimes we're in a rush, but sometimes, go with the first parking spot you see, so you have to walk a little bit. Going for a break, a walk in between shifts, like making sure you're going lunch, breakfast, dinner, after dinner, those sorts of things. And instead of sitting in a break room, actually go for a walk. So those are some quick strategies, but 10,000 steps is a minimum. If I want to be really aggressive, say for example, if somebody wants to be really aggressive with their weight loss, I will prescribe up to 12,000 steps, which is a little bit more and a little bit more challenging to hit. But that if you're hit that 8 to 10,000 steps, you're doing pretty good. So that's my recommendation to get if you want to make sure that your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is well, so that it's contributing to your fat loss. And there you have it. The most underrated exercise for fat loss: walking. Make sure you're doing it.